So hello, Andrea. Welcome to the Beyond Money Summit.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thank you for joining us for the How I'm Doing It segment, where we're talking to women like you who are building businesses, securing generational wealth, and spreading really financial empowerment, because what you do definitely lends to that. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. So I'm a business lawyer. I'm the founder of Henry Business Law and the Secure Startup. And I work with women entrepreneurs to help them to grow and protect the businesses that will help them generate and keep on generating generational wealth.
I love it. And how did you go about building?
Yeah. So my two most important values are independence and freedom. And so when I used to say third child, but I say last child now, so the universe knows that I'm not playing around. So when my last child was born, it was really important to me to know that I could look after my family, look after myself, but also, have a career that I felt comfortable in. And I had done the traditional law thing for a while. I didn't feel like I could bring my whole self to work. And so it was really important to me to have something that was my own and that I could make in my own image. And then it was really important to me to be able to bring the independence and freedom to other women. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of looked around and I realized that there was to me, an underserved niche. There were loads of women entrepreneurs who had amazing ideas, whose businesses had started, but didn't feel comfortable accessing legal advice.
Right.
And some of it was, perception of the legal industry as being very stiff and not understanding the types of, coaching is a relatively new thing, people who are in the alternative healthcare professions. Mm. And so a feeling that they weren't understood, they weren't being seen and heard and valued. And some people who had reached out had experienced being condescended to and kind of, told. I have one client who said she was breastfeeding at the time, and she had to, leave a meeting to go pump. And her lawyer, not the other person, her lawyer was like, "Are you a mom or a business person?" Oh. As if you can't do both. Right. And so that's how I got into this. I was like, no, that is really important that we have. I know from years of experience that it's really hard to build a successful business, if not impossible, without legal advice. Mm-hmm. And women needed that, but we needed it in a way that felt safe and felt empowering. Right.
What exactly do you mean that you weren't able to show up as yourself?
Yeah. So traditionally, the legal profession, I have a friend who calls it pale, male, and stale.
Wow. Okay.
Right? It was a bit harsh.
Accurate.
But accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel like you have to be very staid and like everything has to be very proper and very formal. And there's this idea of distance between you and your client. Like you are somehow here and the client is there.
Right.
And I didn't want that. I wanted to feel like I really was in partnership with my client. Like we are working together for you to have this amazing business, because when women's businesses thrive, we do cool stuff with it. I don't know if you saw the thing with Sarah Blakely, right? So she sold shares in her company and was still a billionaire and gave, I think it was free first class tickets to everyone.
And $10,000
and $10,000.
Right.
And I saw that, I was like, man, I want to give away some tickets too. But that's what we do. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have some guys who then go to space for 11 minutes, which is not as helpful.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think, there's also, like, I'm a mom of 3 kids. Generally, and I don't want to say for everyone, but generally in the legal profession, it was very much like you don't talk about your kids. You're viewed as less competent if you have to leave on time because you have to, pick them up from school or daycare. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to be able to talk about my kids. I wanted to be able to talk about my culture. I wanted to have that rapport with my clients and laugh and not take things so seriously. Right. And I felt like I couldn't really do that in traditional law firms.
So obviously you started your business to be able to be yourself, but also to give other women the opportunity to have access to legal advice, especially as entrepreneurs. So why is it so important that entrepreneurs seek legal advice?
Yeah, so the traditional answer is you want to make sure that nothing bad happens, right? And that is important. But I think a good business lawyer acts almost like a blind spot checker, right? So if you're a good driver, you check when you're changing lanes, you check when you're driving. a good business lawyer is going to be able to say, this is the thing that you want to do. Let's look to see what the risks are, and let's put something in place that's going to protect you so that you can confidently go after that.
And we're going to get into that. But first, I just want to know, as a new entrepreneur, where do you even begin?
Yeah, so ideally, you start with a consultation, right? So most lawyers will provide either free or, low-cost consultations. And even if you have to pay a full price, it's really worth it to have an hour with someone who's going to sit down and look at the specifics of your business.
Right.
The other thing that you want to look at, especially when you're starting off and may not have the resources to invest a ton in legal, is really good but affordable guides and contract templates. So we actually created the Secure Startup last year during COVID exactly for that reason, because there were a lot of people who had lost revenue, but suddenly were really interested in contracts, because we all got an education in contracts and whether they could be enforced or not last year, right?
Right.
So people needed access to high quality advice and high quality contracts, but didn't have a ton to spend. And there were a lot of people who lost jobs, right? Or who, their job disappeared, and so who went into business instead. And so the Secure Startup is high quality legal guides and contract templates that are done for you, but they're for Canadian entrepreneurs, which is really important because there's so much available for our neighbors to the south and not that much for us. So it's for Canadian entrepreneurs, and it's industry specific. Because if you are running a salon, you have a different legal framework than someone who is an online entrepreneur, from someone who is a coach or a consultant. And so it's really important that you have advice and templates that reflect your industry and your business.
Why do you see business as activism?
Yes. So we have done the marches and the protests, right?
Right.
And I really feel that in this world, I mean, we wish they were different, but in this world, money talks. I think it's really important. We were talking earlier about Sarah Blakely. There are all kinds of studies that show that when you empower women, when women have money, it benefits the society as a whole, right?
Yes.
They invest in their children, they invest in health, they invest in their communities. And so if we have economic power, we can make changes and we can be activists in a lot of ways. One, just your example, right? We were talking earlier off camera about Rachel, who's going to be the lead speaker.
Yes,
for the
Rachel
summit.
Rogers, right? Yeah.
I love Rachel. The first Black woman with children who was a lawyer and who was doing her own thing that I had seen and painted a picture that made me think that it was possible.
Right.
So simply by living your truth and by taking a stand and saying, I'm going to do things my way, you are an activist, because you empower so many other women who are seeing you and saying, well, if she can do it, I can do it as well. As your business grows, so the second thing, as your business grows, you can create the workplace that you wish existed for you.
Whew.
Right?
Yes.
That is the most fun thing in my business for me.
Yeah.
Is having people. I have a new associate lawyer who said this is the first time she's worked in a place where she's felt comfortable enough to consider having a family. Because we so treasure work-life, I don't want to say balance, but that you have to take time to look after yourself and have a life outside of what you do for your clients and your customers. And so creating that is a form of activism, right? Because if you are transparent with the salaries that you are paying and you pay well and you allow people to have the flexibility to take after their life, and then people see that that is working, you have more of an opportunity to encourage other people to do the same thing. And then the third thing is actually make money, you can deploy it where it's important for you. You can fund candidates that are going to promote political parties and political acts that are important to you. You can fund other causes. So last year with the Black Lives Matter, people who had money could write checks and bail out people who were being arrested for protests.
Yes.
So you need both. I'm in no way saying you need all forms of activism, but the one that I've chosen is business because it makes such a significant impact.
Right.
And as you create this wealth, one, you're giving back to your community, but you're also creating wealth for your family, for your children. You normalize in the eyes of your children and everyone that comes in contact with you that you as a Black woman can have wealth and can have power.
Yes. Like, I'm here. I'm hearing you, and I love that concept. And so, what does generational wealth look like for you?
For me, it. I grew up in Barbados. I was born here, but I grew up in Barbados, and my grandmother was a maid, and she used to talk about the sons of her employers, and said they never had to tell anybody sorry to be late. And for me, in a funny way, that's what it is, right? It is independence.
Yeah.
Because what my goal is for my children and for the children of my clients and anyone I come into contact with is that they feel secure. They know that there are assets, both in terms of businesses, in terms of investments, in terms of real estate, that they can go and make their own mark in the world and not be worried about looking for a job and having to fit in and having to like tap down on who they are to make a dollar.
What advice do you have for women, especially Black women, entrepreneurs, to be able to build that life that fits for them, that fits with their lifestyle?
Yeah. So I have kind of two answers to this. So I have the strategic answer and then a little bit of the woo-woo answer.
I need both, but I'm waiting for the woo-woo.
So let's tell the strategy first. Really, the things that have made a huge difference in my business and that I've seen when clients implement it: systems, team, intellectual property, right? Systems, especially when you're starting out, will allow you to be more efficient and do a lot more in a shorter space of time, which is really important when you've got a lot of things to do. Secondly, team, right? Having people who are going to support you so you don't have to spend all of your time doing all the things. You can really spend the time in your zone of genius. And then leveraging your intellectual property, the genius that you have that seems really easy. The thing with intellectual property and genius is that when you are acting and when you're working in your genius, it feels really easy. So you don't imagine that anybody else will pay you for this because, of course, everyone else has it. But no, they don't. It's your gift that you are to be leveraging. From the woo-woo side, and I actually think this is more important. So we've all heard of the Pareto principle, right? That 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. The trick is which 20%? Like, how do you determine that?
Okay.
And so if we want to make sure that we have time for self-care and travel and pleasure and joy and ease, we want to be really clear about what that 20% is. Because if we can figure that out, then we can spend 20% of the time of everyone else and get the same or better results.
Right.
To me, the way that I have found to do that is to rest. Right?
Yes. Rest.
It's counterintuitive because you think you should be doing more.
Absolutely.
And so you end up doing all of the things because you're not sure what to do. Whereas if you took a little bit of a step back and did meditation and journaled and actually slept and gave yourself permission to exhale, right? Yeah. The answers would come. And to do that, you have to create space in your life. So we have been often taught that we have to do everything to be a good woman. You have to keep a really clean house and you have to do all these things, which is wonderful. I love a clean house. I don't want to have to be the one cleaning it.
Fair?
Right?
Right.
So one of the things I had to make peace with was that I didn't have to be the one to clean the clothes for them to be clean. I didn't have to be the one to clean the house for it to be clean. I didn't have to be the one to cook the food for the children to have something to eat.
Right.
It became really important to figure out what are the key things that only I can do. So in allowing ourselves space to have other people help us, and this is particularly difficult for Black women because we have been told we have to be strong and do everything. And that is, that is what we give ourselves kudos for. But we really have to be able to accept help. And be like, if this is the thing that I'm pursuing, I need to make space in my life to be able to do this.
Right.
And accept help in these other areas that are not my zones of genius.
I love that. And it's a perfect way to end off because rest is productive too. And so on top of all the amazing advice that you gave us, I'm super happy that you mentioned that and you incorporate self-care because that's really important and it's also an investment in yourself.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
And we are so happy that you're able to give us your advice and we look forward to seeing what you get up to in the future.
Thank you so much. This was fun.